Hello, everyone. It is Friday afternoon, and I'm Diana Rankin here with you with again one of your questions that we're going to answer from Phillip. And I have to say, this is a really interesting question, which the questions that you all are sending me they're blowing me away because I am learning so much from your questions. So please keep those questions coming. You can put them in the comments below. You can email them to me, and my email address is below. But I'm excited about your questions. This is, by the way, June, I think it's the 27th week of the year, 2021. And this is the week of June 27th to July 3rd. And I give you those dates, not that it really matters, because these questions are not about what's happening this week. The predictions for July I will be putting up next week or possibly this weekend, but I think it'll probably be next week. But these are questions, these are esoteric questions. Hello, Wendy. Yes, you made it live, and I'm so glad. And we are just getting started. So it is, the question this week has to do with heart transplants, and I'll read it in more depth. But I just wanted to say I'm so glad that you're here, Wendy, and it's so good to see those of you who come live, and it's also good to read the comments below. Now, we will also get a message from Phillip, and this is one of my books, The Master's Book of Answers by Phillip. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's just an oracle book that each page has a different question on it. So we will get that. I want to also just invite all of you, there's still time to register for tonight. I'm having a sacred circle on Zoom, and it's not quite the same as being in person, but just go to my website and you can get registered. What is Sacred Circle? Well, I tell you a story, and tonight I'm going to tell you the story from my life about I met a new friend because of a dog, and it's a rather interesting story. And then we do a guided meditation for personal and planetary healing, and then each person in the audience gets a personal message. And we don't invade a person's privacy with that. But unlike the questions on this general, more esoteric questions that will be of interest to many people, on Sacred Circle, you get to ask a personal question. Or if you want to talk to a loved one in spirit world, we do that as well. So a few more hours left that we can register. It's tonight, 7 to 9 Eastern Daylight Time. So I hope to see many of you there. We do still have room for some of you. Okay, here we go with this week's questions. When a loved one dies, including pets, we hold them in our hearts. What happens when one has a heart transplant? Do we become different, or is there an overlay of a different person upon us? I imagine we have a physical heart, and then we have our energetic heart, which is more closely aligned to the heart chakra. Interesting question. All right, here's what Phillip has to say. And again, the answers, I learn so much because I think, oh, I know the answer to that. And then, no, I don't. I learned so much more. So here we go. The heart. Far back in human history, the heart was considered the organ of emotions. This has continued into modern day acceptance and has become associated with love. All phases of love, from the romantic types of love to the deepest spiritual love of self and all. To explain the answer to the questions, we must begin by looking at life before life in the human world. So let us begin in spirit world. We have spoken of soul families and soul agreements before, so we will only recap to say that the humans involved in transplants of any body organ usually have a soul agreement and are often of the same soul family. Notice that we said usually and often. We did not say always. There are two main reasons for this. The agreement can come after birth, arranged among watchers and guides to help humans fulfill or change their soul's mission. Or a human may outgrow their soul family and need to move to a level of souls with a higher consciousness. This occurs when a human's deeds and thoughts grow rapidly. To have an organ exchange decided while in the human body is rare. So let us talk about what is more common. That is when souls within a soul family have a soul agreement. Let us say there are multiple reasons for these agreements. We shall look at the most common. The heart carries the genetic makeup of the heart donor. The heart receiver needs to mix that genetic makeup with their genetic makeup. This may be for the purpose of ancestral healing, for example. Or it may be that the donor took the life of the receiver in another life experience and thus gives life. The receiver may need to understand certain emotions that are not available in their genetic code, but are available in the donor's genetic code. There is also reason to mix genetic codes from different human families to allow the soul family to advance. As you can see, there are multiple reasons for this agreement between donor and receiver. Now, before we address the specific question, let us address why a heart may fail after transplant. Again, there are several reasons, but the most common two are those that the receiver has received the needed genetic code and is now ready to move on, or the receiver is unable to take on the responsibility of the new genetic code. Now, to address the specific questions. Do we become different? Is there an overlay of a different person upon us? Each receiver would need to answer from their human perspective. Some are aware, some are not. This said, once the genetic code is altered, a third being comes into existence. This may or may not alter the receiver's life. Let us say, for example, the receiver needs to experience emotions at a deeper level. As a soul, they chose to be more closed in order to complete certain tasks. But they also had the agreement that when these tasks were complete, they would take on the emotions of a poet. Since humans agree the heart holds and expresses human emotions, the receiver made the agreement for the need for the poet's heart. The opposite might also be true. The receiver might find human life too harsh for a gentle heart. As you can see, there are multiple reasons for a heart exchange, and each receiver receives and expresses differently. Now we will address the statement that we have a physical heart and an energetic heart, which is more closely aligned to the heart chakra. This answer may differ with different spiritual and religious practice. This is what we teach. There is a spiritual body and a human body. The spiritual body influences the physical body, and the physical body influences the human body. When the genetic code alters the physical body, it will also alter the human's emotions. The human may or may not be aware of this. This alteration is also an influence on the spiritual body. The specific genetic code that each human carries allows the human to experience and express in their own unique way. This human action and thought is imprinted on the individual spirit that is then spread to their soul family and then to all. We have tried to make simple a complex order of spirit and human life. Let us leave you with this thought. Your spirit life and human life are entwined. What alters one influences the other. Spirit life is of the higher essence. The more you live your spirit through your human life, the more joy you will live, even in those times when the tender human heart hurts from the loss of a beloved pet. Whew. Next week, we're going to talk about dreams, by the way. Thank you, Mike. Mike says, have to listen to this a few times. I would agree on that. I'm going to go back and rereading it or listen to it myself. And thank you for joining us. So glad. And by the way, Mike, thank you for this question and others that you submitted. Juliet says, wow, just wow. And yes, I agree, Juliet. And thank you for the questions that you send to us as well, because many of your questions end up with that wow, just wow. So, that is it. Phillip always takes us deeper than we're expecting, and it's so much bigger and so much more. And I always say that the more I learn, I know so little, because there is so much, and it does make human life easier. I think it makes human life more special, perhaps, or certainly more joyful. And in these days, finding that joy is so important and not necessarily easy. But again, I'm going to read that last paragraph, because that last paragraph, I think, says so much. Mike wants to know how we receive this communication while awake. That's a bit more complicated, Mike. I don't think I'm going to do them anymore. I do very intense weekend workshops on developing the intuition. I've just reached that age where they're a little difficult on my body, because we do go so deep and it's so intense. But I do have articles out there. I have videos out there on ways to contact your spirit guide, and try out those videos. Those will help. I also promise one of these days to write an online course for how to work with intuition a bit more. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and so it's easy for me. For others, it is a process. It is a learning experience. So stay tuned and go look up some of my other videos, like 5 ways to contact your spirit guide, for example. And I will get some of those online courses together. All right, here, this last paragraph, though, I want to reread. Your spirit life and human life are entwined. What alters one influences the other. Spirit life is of the higher essence. The more you live your spirit through your human life, the more joy you will live, even in those times when the tender human heart hurts from the loss of a beloved pet. Mike says your info is very detailed. Yes, and I think that's in part because I've been working with Phillip for so long. I say that, and your questions, trust me, your questions trigger this. Your questions and Juliet's questions and other questions from others trigger these deep, detailed conversations or information, these conversations that I have with Phillip. And so, can you do this yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely. Be patient. Just look at that video for contacting your spirit guide. 5 ways to do that. Practice those and don't give up. Like I say, I've been doing this for years. This was a book originally that came to me like maybe 1987, and I just wrote it out in a notebook and put it on a shelf. And then in the early 2000s or late 1990s, I don't even remember the copyright date on this. It's been out a while. 2013, I finally turned it into a book. So these questions or these answers that Phillip provide came a long time ago, but I didn't understand the value of them. For what is that? 1987 to 2013. Took me a while to learn the value. And keep in mind, I'm old. I'm 75, and I'm fortunate to be a relatively young 75 and in good health. And I think that comes from years of working with the spirit. So you can do it too. I'm not doing anything that somebody else can't do. It just takes time, practice, and desire. So let's see what we get here. This is where we're stopping, but I'm feeling there might be another message besides this. So we're going to stop here and I might come back. Let's see what our messages are. I'm hearing right side. If you heard right side, because remember there's each page has its own wisdom. If you heard right, then our intuition's in sync. If you heard left, that is a very specific for you. So pay attention. So on the right, it says, if life does not ask you to be perfect, why do you ask it of yourself? If life does not ask us to be perfect, why do you ask it of yourself? Oh, we really need that one, don't we? Mm-hmm. And on the left, it says, your mind was given to you to obtain truth. Your mind was given to you to obtain truth. Well, those are two pretty important messages, but I am getting there's more. So I'm going to just flip through and here we go again. And again, I'm getting right side is our intuitive message for all of us. And then the left side, if you heard left, that's a specific message for you. On the right side, a healer does not heal. A healer lets healing take place. And on the left, as you see the world, so is your world. As you see the world, so is your world. So I'm going to read all of our 4 messages again. The first message for all of us is, if life does not ask you to be perfect, why do you ask it of yourself? And then the other message that we got for all of us is, a healer does not heal. A healer lets healing take place. That's if you heard right. If you heard left, your mind was given to you to obtain truth. And as you see the world, so is your world. Whew. I again am so appreciative of your love, your support. Thank you for holding me through my grief of saying goodbye to another beloved little one. It hasn't been that long since we buried Jesse, who used to sit on the chair behind me here during these sessions. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had to bury Sophia. Daisy's hanging in there, as is Lily, and so are we. So, my friends, all I can say is it has been a really difficult Mercury in retrograde for so many. And so know I'm holding all of you in my prayers. Thank you. And I thank you for holding me in your love, your hearts, your prayers. And it would be interesting if anybody who hears this has had a heart transplant and is able to talk to us about or contact us and let us know if you felt a change. In the meantime, I will see you probably early next week rather than over the weekend, but I'm not sure. I've got a pretty busy weekend lined up, but we will get the July predictions out as well. In the meantime, thank you, Wendy, Mike, Juliet, and those of you who join us live. Thank you also for those of you who make the comments below. Thank you for receiving our love. Thank you. And thank you for the love that you send to us. You make me happy. You give me joy. Until we meet again.